Happy Independence Day, and welcome to the St. Genevieve Muni Band's portion of today's celebration. While all patriotic and national music is to a greater or lesser extent popular music, it may be classed apart in that its growth is mainly due to the circumstance of war and the specific outcome of such conditions. America's war songs have played their part as incentives to patriotism, to fill the ranks through enlistment, to valor in the field and on the sea, and have served to inspire and cheer the fighting forces of our country. Meacham composed this next march intending to convey the image of a patrol and the feeling as it gets near, then passing by, with the music gradually diminishing as the patrol continues into the distance. Please enjoy American Patrol. No country, as history proves, can afford to ignore the patriotic force capable of being brought into play through the power of music, either in song or in instrumental form, both of which, when performed, can incite a population to action. This is so reminiscent of this next medley of songs, which pays tribute to our ever-vigilant armed forces. Listen as we salute the Coast Guard with Semper Paratou, the Air Force with Into the Wild Blue Yonder, the Navy with Anchors Aweigh, the Marine Corps with the Halls of Montezuma, and the Army with the Caisson Song. This is Armed Forces Salute. Robert Russell Bennett was lucky enough to have worked during that golden era of Broadway musicals when the credit orchestrated by implied an actual orchestra in the theater. We still have wonderful music on Broadway, and Broadway producers still engage skillful, even inspired orchestrators. But what these orchestrators have to work with hardly compares to the symphonette that once filled the space between the front row and the proscenium arch. Often having to make do with a rhythm combo, a couple of woodwinds, and an occasional French horn or cello, today's orchestrators frequently have to enlist the help of a computer to convince the audience they're hearing something more. The orchestrator is the musical dramatist. He is telling the story with an orchestra. And for much of the 20th century, nobody did it better than Robert Russell Bennett. This next selection is an excerpt of Bennett's 1952 orchestration of the Emmy, Grammy, and Oscar-winning score for the naval history of World War II, called Victory at Sea. Elliot Del Borgo is an internationally known conductor of bands and orchestras. He taught instrumental music in the Philadelphia Public Schools and was a professor at the Crane School of Music, where he held teaching and administrative positions from 1966 to 1995. An award-winning member of ASCAP, Del Borgo has been a frequent clinician, lecturer, and adjudicator in the United States and abroad. In addition to his music for the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid, he has published nearly 500 compositions for a variety of media. His music reflects the aesthetics of 20th century musical ideals through its eclectic nature and vigorous harmonic and rhythmic style. Composed in 2001, A Jefferson Portrait is based on excerpts from the Declaration of Independence. Our distinguished narrator for this selection will be Mr. James Baker, reciting text from that historic document written by Thomas Jefferson. If you please, A Jefferson Portrait.
Of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume, among the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly All experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. Therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Perhaps more than anyone else, John Philip Sousa is responsible for bringing the United States Marine Band to an unprecedented level of excellence, a standard upheld by every Marine Band director since. Sousa grew up with the Marine Band, and his intimate knowledge of the band, coupled with his great ability, provided the ideal medium to showcase the marches that earned him the title, the March King. The Marine Band was Sousa's first experience conducting a military band, and he approached musical matters unlike most of his predecessors. He replaced much of the music in the library with symphonic transcriptions and changed the instrumentation to meet his needs. Rehearsals became exceptionally strict, and he shaped his musicians into the country's premier military band. Marine Band concerts began to attract discriminating audiences, and the band's reputation began to spread. In 1889, Sousa wrote Washington Post March to promote an essay contest sponsored by the newspaper. The march was soon adapted and identified with the new dance called the two-step. After that, the Washington Post became the most popular tune in America and in Europe. Enjoy the Washington Post March. America the Beautiful is a patriotic song having been deemed the American national hymn, as opposed to the Star-Spangled Banner, which is the national anthem. The lyrics, originally a poem, were inspired by Catherine Bates on a train trip to Colorado Springs in 1893. Several of the sights on her trip found their way to her prose. The alabaster buildings of Chicago, the wheat fields of Kansas, and the majestic view of the Great Plains from atop Pikes Peak. Several existing pieces of music were adapted to the poem, but the hymn tune, composed in 1882 by Samuel A. Ward, was generally considered the best music and is still the popular tune today. America the Beautiful. Beginning in the 1850s, the sound and spirit of America included the sentimental parlor song, the characteristic levee work songs, spirituals, music composed specifically for the theater, the stirring music of the town brass band, plus the small community social orchestra performing for dance occasions. All this and more forms a vital part of our national musical heritage. The era before, during, and after the Civil War was a time of musical development that would lead to the popularization of the bands of Sousa, Gilmore, and Fillmore. Henry Fillmore was a truly American bandmaster and composer. This next selection is one of Fillmore's most famous compositions, Americans We. The original manuscript for God Bless America was written by Irving Berlin in 1918 while he was serving in the U.S. Army. Although put aside at that time, it was with the rise of Hitler in 1938 that Berlin, being a Jewish immigrant, felt it was time to revive it as a peace song. First heard on an Armistice Day radio broadcast and sung by the great Kate Smith, it became her signature song. Berlin provided an introduction that is now rarely heard. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. The royalties of this song have been given to the God Bless America Fund by Berlin for redistribution to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of the USA. This is God Bless America. Billy Boy is a traditional folk song and nursery rhyme found in the United States. With many variations having been recorded, it has greatly extended the number of verses and tasks for which the maid whom Billy wishes to court can perform, besides that of making a cherry pie. In one such version, the woman being courted is actually named Betsy Jane. Skip to My Lou was a popular partner-stealing dance from America's frontier period. Since instruments were frowned upon, particularly the fiddle, the dancers had to create their own music by clapping and singing. Couples would dance around a lone male who lost his partner. Then at the appropriate point in the lyrics, he would steal the partner of a dancing man. The Lou, referred to in this song, comes from the Scottish word meaning love. Shenandoah is an American folk song dating to the early 19th century, with many different interpretations of this tune about longing to travel west across the Missouri River. It is no doubt one of the most beautiful melodies in American folk music history. Although not as playful as the other two melodies you'll hear in this next piece, it's absolutely reminiscent of a time gone by. This is Second American Folk Rhapsody. It just wouldn't be right if this American classic was not our next and final selection. Besides the fact that it's Sousa, and you can't do the July 4th without it. In 1896, while on vacation in Europe with his wife, Sousa received word that his good friend and band manager, David Blakely, had died. Sousa quickly returned to the States aboard the SS Teutonic. Pacing the deck of the ship, the music of the Stars and Stripes Forever began to come to him. Sousa describes the experience. Suddenly, I began to sense a rhythmic beat of a band playing within my brain. Throughout the whole tense voyage, that imaginary band continued to unfold the same themes, echoing and re-echoing the most distant melody. I did not transfer a note of that music to paper while I was on the steamer, but when we reached shore, I set down the measures that my brain band had been playing for me, and not a note of it has ever changed. For 25 years, Sousa's band played the march at almost every concert it held. Although the piece is always played as an instrumental, Sousa did set words to it, somewhat triumphalistic by today's standards. Let martial note in triumph float, and liberty extend its mighty hand. A flag appears mid thunderous cheers, the banner of the Western land. Designated in 1987 as the National March of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, the Stars and Stripes Forever. It's time for us to say farewell, with the most exciting part of the day's festivities yet to come. Thank you for listening, be safe, and enjoy your holiday. Good night.